To the Flow Tracy Money Audio Commentary. This is Owen Tracy recording. It's 3:23 p.m. that is Central Time, and today is June 27th. I thought we'd kick off with the Topix Banks Index because I think there is one thing that really stands out on the chart is that the peak was back in late 1989, and since then it's been a very difficult time for banks, but most particularly they haven't been able to do much for the last 15 years because of zero interest rates. And in many cases, well, for much of that time, it was negative rates. So it's really hard for banks to make money when they can't charge an interest rate. Their entire business model is about taking advantage of a steep yield curve. Well, Japan has finally started to raise rates, so that's better for banks. But I think it's going to be a similar story, that we can make the same argument for banking indices around the world. So that's certainly something to pay attention to. Then in here today, what we've had was the Hang Seng in China was down in a fairly dynamic manner. And Shenhua Energy, which is one of the big coal-fired power station energy providers, was down in a dynamic manner. It's been one of the best performing shares in China for the last several months, and I don't believe that it is simply because of the share going ex-div that the price pulled back so sharply. But certainly what it is helping to emphasize is that perhaps there's less demand, and that the Chinese economy remains under pressure, and that is also being quite clearly priced into the bond market, where the 10-year yield is still pushing on to new lows now, or at least testing lows. When we think about the broad market environment, then Australia's market pulled back in sympathy with the weakness in China today, but then it recouped a lot of that decline. So the index was in very well, it was in mildly negative territory. In the futures market, it's currently in positive territory. Then in Europe, we had a mixed day. I think it was broadly considered that Rishi Sunak did not do enough in the debate to rescue his chances of remaining Prime Minister in the UK. And the FTSE 100 was down about 0.6% in here today. But the CAC index in France was down about 1%. Also taking some of its cue from what's happening in China. A lot of the big companies there are going to be focused on the growth from China, and then of course then we have the little pause that's going on right now in the defense sector, and that's also a significant part of the CAC index. In Wall Street today, the S&P 500 is pretty much unchanged. The Nasdaq 100 is up a tad. We've had a lot of questioning going on right now about the trajectory of the U.S. economy, and housing starts, or at least the number of houses available to sell are pending home sales are going down, but the number of houses available to sell is going up. And then we have the additional point that initial jobless claims came in today mildly below the anticipated figure, but the continuing claims continues to surprise on the upside. It clearly demonstrates that once people are losing their jobs, they're finding it more difficult to find a new one. So certainly there's plenty to think about in here in terms of this market.